This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome inside the Wrestling War Zone, Monday Night Wars podcast retrospective. I am your host, JT, and joining me as always is my partner on the show, Mr. Chad Campbell. Chad, how are you?
Doing good. How you doing tonight?
I am good. It's Chad on the road, right?
Chad on the road, 85 degrees today in Macon. I'm in Macon, and the Braves got snowed out in Denver, so quite a day.
Chad on the road is like one of my original favorite gimmicks.
Yes, Chad's been on the road a lot lately. It's been I don't know, it's getting kind of depressing.
Yeah.
It's getting tougher the older the kids are.
Not digging it.
With my new schedule, I've been spending usually one day of the week on the road. Usually it's Tuesdays. This week it just happened to be Tuesdays and Wednesday. So spending one day a week on the road, and then I've been commuting down to Macon, which is about an hour and 40 minutes on another day. So I'm working out of that office, but it's only temporary. So it's one of those weird things where I'm going to be working out of this office for 4 or 5 months out of the year and then doing my other big audit in my main office in Atlanta the rest of the time. So I'm at a weird spot with this office where, I exchange pleasantries with the people down here, but I'm just kind of here for a quick minute. So there's not really much relationships being built.
Right.
And it's
not here to make
weird.
Friends, Chad.
Right. Well, that's how it is. I mean, I kind of do. It does feel like sort of like in the territory days of wrestling where I'm like coming in for, a quick stop in the promotion and then heading on. I mean, it is like that. So, and then conversely, then when I go home, it's kind of like, well, because I'm not here permanently, I mean, just when people ask me how my week was, it's kind of like, yep, I worked and then I'm here, like on the weekends. So it's kind of weird. Like there's a lot of, it feels like empty voids, but it's kind of how it works. Because it's not like they know my coworkers in Atlanta either, but because they're permanent, they're kind of like characters of my life.
Right.
That I talked to Jennifer about or whatnot. But down here, they're all just sort of faceless entities. So.
It's robots.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Amazon world.
Yeah. So you've recovered? You came back from the big weekend?
I have not recovered.
Not yet.
It has been a rough adjustment period. Yesterday I worked from home. That was my first day back, and I just was fucking useless. I mean, I just could not even bear to do anything. Today I went in the office, and it wasn't much better. And then I played basketball tonight, which helped a bit. It gave me some energy, but I'm still wicked tired. And it was it's an awesome weekend. I'll never ever complain about it. I had a great time. I highly recommend anyone who hasn't been to go, just for the excitement in the area and all the shows and the camaraderie. Mania to me is like the icing on the cake at the end of the weekend at this point. I like going to Mania, but I love all the other stuff. Maybe more half the time. We had another great tailgate, though. We had a really good turnout. Well, we partnered up with, this is kind of strong, but we attended the Mania Club tailgate. But there were 30 of us from PTBN that were part of that, so that was cool. We had kind of our own little corner.
How many was in that thing overall, you think?
Oh man, I am bad at people counting, but it was multiple hundreds.
Oh, so yeah. I mean, I figured if Stephanie McMahon's making an appearance, it had to be pretty large.
Yeah, that was cool. And we weren't like near the arena. We were kind of in a lot like off to the back near Izod. We had our own.
So further off than we were at 29.
Yeah, we were like in the main lot at 29. For this, we were in a kind of an aux lot near Izod Center. But we had like a huge tent and like they had like a DJ and like all, it was like a big party. And I guess they kept it a secret that they had made this deal with Stephanie to present her with what they had earned in donations for Connor's cure through like both the money paid for the tailgate and then like they had like a raffle and stuff. So that she came to kind of accept that, and she gave a quick little speech, and then Santino Marella was there for some reason talking as well. But Steffi, that was a cool moment. Like, I feel like she's kind of rare for like appearances like that. So it was kind of neat for her to come out and, she was very friendly and talked and was very thankful for everything. So I thought it was cool because it wasn't that far from showtime. Like she came out, it was probably like the Cowboy and his crew had left already. So it had to be, after 3, I think, when she came. So we're talking like getting close to showtime. She's trucking out to the aux lot, in a Mania Club t-shirt, to join us. And then what was really, really cool, though, with the highlight, so the Cowboy's nephew, Ryder, came, and he just got into wrestling, like, last year, and he's become, like, diehard. So his first Mania, full on. I mean, he watches every show, everything, loves it. So they entered the raffle, and he fucking won an authentic WWE title belt. And it was autographed by Stephanie, which was, I think, again, kind of a rare signature. Roman Reigns and a few other people had autographed the belt. So he won that on like a $10 raffle. So he was like, and he's super shy and he had like this huge smile and it was really cool. Everyone was chanting his name. So that was an awesome moment. So, and it was a really cool prize that he took home. I think Scott had jealous eyes. Like,
I was going to say, now is he going to share that with Scott? And the Cowboy was probably going nuts too, like the 29 program that Armento purchased. All right. That's right. Is that going to be passed around all weekend?
I forgot about the sharing of the program. Scott had a time of his life afterward.
Oh, God.
But no, it was, so it was a really cool moment. That was worth the tailgate alone. And no, we just said it was a great time. I went to Takeover. We had a little trouble on the train. Claire directed us the wrong way.
Oh, imagine that.
So we missed the first few minutes of the opening tag, but we got there. And then, went to G1, courtesy of my boy, Sean Kidd. We were in the Pepsi suite, so that was pretty awesome. We're drinking Jack and Mountain Dew. Enjoyed that.
Jack and Mountain Dew?
Yeah, Jack and Mountain Dew. It was tasty.
That's weird.
Yeah, you kind of get used to it.
What do you got against Jack and Coke?
Well, it was Pepsi. And I didn't want Pepsi.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
Jack and Pepsi.
It was the Pepsi suite. They didn't have Coke products in there. But Sean was nice enough. Not only did he get us in there for free, he also brought Jack for us all to enjoy. It was him and his couple buddies, and then me, Mr. Flanagan, Criscolo, and Jennifer. We were lucky enough to be the 4 in the suite. So that was really cool. Got to meet a lot of new people. I met Peter Winson. That was a trip. He is just like he is on the podcast.
He looked miserable in every picture.
Oh, that's just his face. I think he's just got resting bitch face. He had the time. He was another guy at the time of his life. Him and Criscolo are like made for each other. My God, it's you hear it on the podcast, and after the show we'll talk. But like even in person, it was like, my God, they're just like off, bouncing off each other. No, he had a great time. He was pretty loaded, Peter.
Maybe he can move in.
Oh, he should. There's a spot. But no, it was cool meeting him. Met Richard Land at Mania. That was neat. Meeting Landy. Got to see Brad at Mania for a hot minute. So that was nice. Stacy, of course. I'm trying to think of who else knew. Oh, of course, my angel. Mark Poirier was there with his wife. That was thrilling.
Yeah, I saw him. I was happy to see him.
Love my little boo.
Him and Claire just sort of pop up.
Oh, yeah.
He's big. Don't hear from him for 4 years. Going wild.
Claire, of course, yes. Claire is a mainstay. He has to be there. Who else was in the house? Anyway, I'm not going to go through everyone. I think that
Yeah. Well, you're going to give the run next week, right?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll touch on it on Place to Be next week. So anyway, it was a great weekend, another classic weekend in the books, and I'm already looking forward to Tampa next year. So it's hard to come down. It's been 3 days and I'm still not over it. So it's tough to go back to reality after you live in a fantasy world for 4 days. It's tough to return. So, to kind of, I guess, set up then tonight's show, Chad, I had been thinking about it actually while I was in MSG. It was funny timing since the show we're talking about tonight features WCW and New Japan going at it. It was funny. There we were, 14 years? 24 years?
24.
Fuck. 24 years later, again, watching Ring of Honor and New Japan share a card at Madison Square Garden. So that was kind of cool to me, kind of cool through line to what we're talking about here and what I was doing over the weekend. So it would be interesting to see how how it was done differently and the role New Japan played, and et cetera, et cetera. So.
Sure. So we are talking about Starrcade 1995 tonight. December 27th, 1995, a Wednesday night, as we discussed in the lead-up. And we'll kind of get to it because it was a pretty low buy rate. I guess we can bury the lead now, but a pretty low buy rate for that. I don't know if it's holidays, Wednesday night, the no Hogan, or the concept. There's kind of a lot of factors at play here. But we kind of get a generic opening showing the U.S. versus Japan feud. And then we go straight to our host tonight. And, it has been sort of just Bobby and Tony for these pay-per-views. But, oh, boy, tonight they're joined by Big Dust.
It's Starrcade, baby. I got to be there.
Yeah, it's Starrcade. He did say the grin didn't even all. So, Dusty's on the scene. We're from Nashville, Tennessee.
We're going to break away for just a minute and talk some Starrcade, Bobby.
They're at the Municipal Auditorium in Nashville. This is the second Starrcade in a row that they're in Nashville, and the second of 3 overall that they'll be in Nashville. I have some beef with the Nashville crowd, as we'll get to tonight. I think this is Bischoff. This should just been in the Omni. I'm gonna go out and say that. Like, I don't know. I understand wanting to go to new markets, but Nashville, Atlanta, not a huge difference. So just put it in the Omni. But yeah, so Dusty's pumped. Dusty says Luger will have to make a stand tonight. And then, in a funny moment, he calls Bobby a weasel. He says, "I'm here with the weasel." And Bobby turns around, like acting like, "Who are you talking about?" So Bobby physically turns around. And then Bobby says this is the perfect place for Dusty here in Nashville, and that Savage is in trouble. And he ends by predicting that Ric Flair will become the next champion and gives us a big woo. So they sort of set the stage there. And then it's our first match, which is really good looking on paper, of Jushin Thunder Liger versus Chris Benoit. Benoit flicks away the Japanese flag Liger was holding. A hot start for Liger as he does the cannonball plancha on the outside. I thought Tony had sprinkled in a lot of good knowledge about the New Japan competitors throughout the night. Here he talks about Liger's Saturday morning cartoon. Tilt-a-whirl suplex for Benoit, but Liger reverses a powerbomb into an arm drag and then fakes a dive to the outside. Now, Benoit is getting cheers here, so the crowd is behind the WCW contingent. Snap suplex and back suplex by Benoit. And then Tony goes through kind of the card as a whole, and he says, it's best 4 out of 7. So even though hypothetically one side could win the World Cup, they still will have all 7 matches tonight. Right. Yeah, so he kind of covers his bases there. Liger again controls with a surfboard and a camel clutch, tombstone reversal with Liger coming out on top, and then he goes to the top rope. Benoit catches him, and then he does the superplex, but when Benoit tries to go for the diving headbutt, he misses. Liger then hits a really good Copo kick in the corner and gets the Liger bomb for a near fall. Brainbuster follows that up, but another arrogant cover for Liger, and that only gets 2. And then Benoit makes his big comeback, hits a diving headbutt, but out comes Kevin Sullivan, and he's at ringside, and he distracts Benoit, and Liger kind of gets a pretty sloppy-looking Rana for 3. So, I mean, this was I thought a good opener. Probably slightly disappointing given the talent involved. I mean, this wasn't your kind of show-stopping match that these two have within them. It was a fairly quick match. I think it went like 11, 12 minutes.
Yeah.
I just thought it was good. It wasn't like Liger versus Pillman from Super Brawl 2, for instance.
No. Yeah.
So a good opener, ended up going 3 1/4, but probably slightly disappointing, all things considered.
Yeah, same here. I went 3 1/4. And a good opener on paper. I thought it was a good choice for them to start with. And it's crazy that, again, WCW can just roll this out there. Like oh, Benoit Liger, here you go. On pay-per-view to open things up.
Yeah.
Sonny Ono was out with Liger, and of course Dusty right away calls him Sonny Bono, which always makes me laugh. Tony got some talking about Liger's Saturday morning cartoon in Japan. Bobby gets his usual rickshaw jokes in there. Benoit I thought was crisp and stiff on offense as always. Tony really gets to a discussion around how the Horsemen currently differ from the past incarnations, which has kind of been one of his talking points of late to kind of put over this modern vintage. The Benoit Lion Tamer was real nasty, and the stiff German he gave. Dusty does a ricochet as he's talking. Benoit gets a nice electric chair as well. I like that. And then, of course, Kevin Sullivan, Jimmy Hart get involved. Benoit gets tied up and loses. And I like, too, when Liger wins and Bobby cheer, yes! And then he backs off. Of course, he's rooting for Japan. Yeah. It was fun and stiff but hot, but I thought the ending was definitely forced. And I thought even though they're protecting Benoit, they're keeping the feud with the Horsemen in the dungeon and Pillman and all that stuff kind of burning. I thought it kind of killed the flow late. I almost wish maybe they just came out after the bell and attacked him or something like that. But, again, I get they didn't want him to lose. Clean. I thought both guys looked really good in there until the finish. 3 1/4 for me as well.
All right. So we're solidarity here with the Wrestling Warzone panel. Gene does an interview with Eddie Guerrero backstage. Eddie says Sullivan had no reason to be at ringside. And then he says it's an honor to be selected by WCW to compete tonight. He puts over Otani as a great athlete, but says he's ready and up to the challenge. So, this is your as white meat babyface promo as you can get from Eddie, but a well-done job, I thought.
Yep.
And he seems kind of humble and excited to be a part of the WCW team. Really reminded me almost of like I know you don't watch golf, but like when somebody's selected for the Ryder Cup and may not be like the best golfer, but is really kind of excited and has a lot of patriotism. And,
right.
Is fired up to be on the team. So,
yeah, I liked the Eddie
worked
pick.
out well.
I liked the variance on the guys here. Like they had some top guys, but they also had this like they basically figured out their mid-card studs that they could work in as well. I thought that was kind of neat to help bolster the team. So I do like the way they went about this. That it wasn't just all purely big stars. They gave guys like Benoit and Eddie a shot in here.
Yeah, the New Japan side was like that too. Also, because you didn't have Hashimoto or Muta on their side, so you only had one Three Musketeer, Chono, and then you had most of the big juniors, but also, as we get to right here, Koji Kanemoto, he was an upstart, had just dropped the Tiger Mask moniker. So our second match is Alex Wright, which it felt like we hadn't seen too much of him just in our shows.
Right.
So it was kind of good to see him come back. So
yeah, I was excited. And it's, again, a big spot for him, really bigger than even Benoit and Eddie. Like, for him to get this slot, it's a lot of faith.
Yep. Yeah, so it's him versus Koji Kanemoto. Koji Kanemoto is somebody that I don't know if he's ever worked the States besides this match. I'd actually need to look that up. He has worked in Germany just recently for WXW. He was in the 16 Carat, but he's kind of been one of my favorites throughout the years. Just a prick and a great wrestler overall. So I was looking forward to this because he is kind of the guy where he was just starting out. He was Tiger Mask 3, and that run was fairly short-lived, and I don't really think he came into his own until he started teaming with Otani regularly in about 1997. So this is really early Kanemoto. A lot of good mat work, I thought, to start out. Tony states that Alex Wright faced Koji in July in Japan. I thought this match had some cool corner work that you don't really see much, where Koji really kind of cut off the ring, and he really punished Alex into the corner and kind of pushed him there. And then Alex was trying to fight out, but Koji kept like putting the pressure on in that corner. But he couldn't, Alex couldn't escape. It was just kind of an interesting strategy that you don't see that much. And then at one point, Koji lays Alex on top of the top rope and drop kicks him in the corner, and that looked pretty nasty. Wright goes to the outside. Koji hits him with a plancha. Wright is is able to reverse a Irish whip and send Koji into the guardrail, and he fires away. But back inside, Kanemoto gets the Tiger Suplex, which again makes sense. He was Tiger Mask 3, which was his finisher when he was Tiger Mask, of course, was the Tiger Suplex. And then Koji hits the moonsault, but he pulls up on the pin, which the announcers immediately call on as a mistake. Wright makes his comeback springboard splash, but Koji is too close to the ropes. So again, they're using the proximity to the ropes and the corners throughout this matchup. And missile drop kick was supposed to be reversed by a drop kick, but that was kind of a weird spot where they both went for a drop kick, neither one hit it, and then they sort of both sold that. Pull up crossbody by Wright gets a 2, and then Kanemoto starts firing off with kicks. And then for the second match in a row, I thought we kind of got a sort of a weird abrupt finish where Wright gets slammed over the turnbuckle almost like a snake eyes, and then Koji rolls him up. So this had a couple of spots of miscommunication overall and a little bit of a disjointed flow, but like I mentioned, it also had some cool wrinkles to it. Made the ring a part of the match, which I don't think you see too often, especially in singles match. You see that more in tag work where the ring's cut off. So I appreciated that here, and I ended up going 3 stars, and New Japan is off to a good start as they're 2-0 overall with the cup.
All right, yeah, no, that big spot for Alex Wright, like we mentioned, which I thought showed good confidence in him. Oh no, of course, is out again. Tony starts talking about Hogan. Says when 1996 starts, he'll be reinstated. So they're kind of just laying those seeds for his return. He also says Wright and Kanemoto met in Japan over the summer in a tournament that Chris Benoit won. Do you know what that was? Was that anything? Was that
I should have looked that up. I don't know right offhand. It may have been Best of the Super Juniors.
Okay.
I'll look that up as you talk.
Okay. Koji works the leg. Dusty, another great Dusty line. The Wonderkin's brain has to realize the down 1-0 here. Tony takes a shot at Smoky Mountain, which I thought was funny too. Right, and Koji tumble outside as he's doing that, and then we get the chin lock. Koji turns around. You get a lot of Dusty doing Dusty here. I did like that nice body press over the top to the floor by Koji as well. I thought the double underhook German they mentioned as well by Koji, and then he had just a really perfect moonsault, but doesn't cover. And then the wind definitely came into Booze and came abruptly. I thought it started a bit rough, but really once they found their groove, I thought the final 3 to 4 minutes were really cracking and pulled this thing up a bit. So I really, really enjoyed the ending of the match. I thought Wright hung in and looked like he belonged, and I thought Kanemoto looked really great too. So I went 3 stars. Again, I thought the soft start kind of hurt it, but I really thought the back end was really, really fun.
It was Best of the Super Juniors and a crazy lineup. So Liger's not in it, but you had Benoit, Otani, Eddie Guerrero as Black Tiger, Koji Kanemoto, Dean Malenko, Gran Amata, Brian Pillman, El Samurai, Alex Wright, and Oro Onaga. So that's a pretty loaded field there.
Good for Alex Wright. And, big year for him.
Benoit beat Otani in the final, as Tony said. So then so Gene gives us the scoops on the hotline. Says Mark Madden has a report of somebody that may be jumping, of course, always. I think he mentions like a big contract or something, so offer. So there you go. And Sonny Ono comes in, very gloaty.
Son of Bono.
Says, goodbye, WCW. Ono says, goodbye, WCW, and goodbye, Iowa. So he's, I didn't know that was part of the
Well, there was an
wager
election
for the
coming
World
up,
Cup
so
of
maybe
Wrestling.
maybe start with the Iowa caucus or something for the '96 election.
Taking over the caucus here.
Son of Bono headed to the Iowa caucus. Gonna vote for Bob Dole.
The Putin of his time, Sonny Ono.
He's gonna rig the election for Dole.
Just sort of a weird interview, but there you go. I found this funny. So Gene is kind of taken aback by the whole interview, and he said, "Let's get back to Eric instead of Tony," which is kind of funny because Sonny Ono and Eric are really good friends.
Right.
That's how he got the spot to begin with. They go back to the announcers real quick. Bobby says everyone has a price, so I thought Ted DiBiase and his unenergetic little turtleneck was going to be running out there. And then Dusty gets pissed when Bobby says that they could own Texas. He gets very upset at this and is like, Texas is not for sale. And I guess he's willing to part with Iowa, but not Texas. So there you have it.
You can have the corn.
But then we get our next match, which is Masahiro Chono versus Lex Luger. I think if you listen to Where the Big Boys Play, I'm not a big Chono guy overall, but he was a signature name. Now, this is where I really took note of this. So with the 7 matches, they really dug deep into the theme song repertoire.
Yes.
And pretty much every Asian-sounding theme that they had, they busted out
and they have some good ones. They should have just used one for all of them, and that's it. Just whatever.
Yes, I would bring forth this one because this was actually the theme that Hikaru Hokuto and Bull Nakano used. So that Masa Chono uses here. So Luger comes out with Jimmy Hart, and then they cut to Jimmy Hart at ringside, and he's singing the Star Spangled Banner. It's really weird. He's like, "Oh, say, can you see?" Ha ha ha! It's like, all right, Jimmy. So Jimmy, I guess that's him as a baby face. I don't know. Chono gets the early advantage as Luger bails. Luger gains the advantage back and is showing speed and aggressiveness, sending Chono to all the corners. Chono refuses a suplex and then pounds in the corner. Tony makes mention that Chono was trained by Luthez. We get a big USA chant for Luger. The crowd's behind him. Chono is in control and has a sleeper hold, which he transitions into the STF. Luger's able to make the ropes, and the crowd had kind of died down and didn't really buy the STF as a finish, which is sort of unfortunate since that is Chono's main finisher. Luger then pounds back, gets an inverted atomic drop, but Chono gets a back elbow from the top. At this point, Chono lands a mafia kick. And then I think we get one of the more infamous Dusty Rhodes on commentary moments as Dusty's basically like, where do you get this mafia kick? And then Bobby, of course, plugs in. I can't remember what he says, but something like Yugoslavian roll up, and and they really go back and forth. It's a pretty infamous, hilarious clip where they are pretty much running through that and popping each other as Luger goes to the finish. He ends up getting the rack and getting WCW on the board here by defeating Chono. So this was a pretty basic match. It was quicker than the first 2 matches. Solid action, but it sort of felt like a Nitro match to me, so I went 2 stars here.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot too. They roll out, they put Lex here, kind of in a must-win. Down 0-2 with a tough, well-known opponent. So it's again positioning Luger as a real top guy that they have faith in to turn the thing around. Tony runs through all, Luger's issues with Sting and Hogan as of late, and I thought Lex looked massive here. He really, really looked jacked up. I think he definitely started saucing again because he wasn't as big in his latter WF days and when he first arrived on Nitro, but he's definitely been cycling up here toward the end of the year because he is all juiced up again. And he gets his power strikes and press slam early. We get a lot of talk between Bobby and Dusty about the importance of the World Cup to the Japanese people. Lots of power offense by both guys. And then, yes, we get the Mafia kick. Quick Lex come back and then win to the big pop. I thought it was a dramatic moment too when he gets the rack for the win because like WCW desperately needed this victory and he didn't know. I mean, Chono's a star. You didn't know if he's a type of guy that would submit to the rack, and so when he does, it feels like a big deal. Again, the finish feels a bit rushed and out of nowhere, and we get Dusty making a sweet and sour joke, seemingly mixing Asian nationalities. WCW draws closer, so I went 2 1/4 on this. Again, it was fine, but it's.
Right.
Luger has been so interesting because he's been so good as a character, and then some of these matches just have not clicked with him. So we'll see. Maybe it'll come, but for now, it's still a lot up and down.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this was about as good as you could expect for a 6-minute Chono. Especially in '95, I think Chono was pretty washed by then. He's somebody that really coasts on his charisma pretty much about from this point forward where he ends up in Team 2000 NWO Japan. So he starts really cruising on his charisma after this. So it was fine. Interview with Sting. Sting says, this is the same Sting promo we've heard like 3 times now.
Yes.
So Sting wants a measure of revenge against Sasaki. Gene, of course, brings up Lex Luger and his relationship. Sting says he has to do what he has to do. Then he runs down Macho. He says, we're trying to work things out, but as you saw on Nitro, that's not going too great. And then, of course, I will never, ever, ever forgive Ric Flair for what he did at Halloween Havoc, even though basically I was a big goof for believing him in the first place. So, and I mean, it's fine, but it did feel like we'd heard this multiple times from Sting. Then we get our 4th match, Johnny B. Bad versus Masa Saito. And Kimberly is with Johnny B. Bad. Kimberly shoots off the Bad Blaster. Bobby name drops AWA, as he said he managed Saito. And then Sonny gets on the mic and says Kim should be home cooking and doing the dishes. which was funny. Kim then returns the favor and calls him Hop Sing. And then I wrote this down verbatim. She says, this ain't no Japanese bathhouse. I ain't no geisha girl. And if this sport is just for men, what are you doing here? That pops Dusty.
Oh, he loved it.
Absolutely huge on commentary.
Call him Hop Sing!
Hop Sing! He ends up saying. I did like Sonny after he takes this verbal beating. He basically kind of talks softly into the microphone and says, Johnny, control your woman. So it's pretty funny. It's like, all right. So we've gotten all the racial jokes we can on a Sonny Ono between Sonny Bono, Hop Sing.
Son of Boneho.
We're running the gambit here.
I did like Saito's Asian fusion music here, too. I noted that one, so this must have been one of the better themes as well.
There we go.
Saito takes the early advantage. Who had the original? Was that the one you mentioned in the last match?
No. So that's the Great Mudas. That dun 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 dun.
Yeah. That's the quintessential WCW Japanese music.
Yes. No. I don't think anybody had that. If it was just. I don't think anybody had that one.
Wow, they left that on the cutting room floor for this one. Huh? That's their best song. That's their biggest one.
Yes. Yeah. So maybe Sasaki. I don't know. Can't remember. I didn't know. Now I kind of want to go back and look at it, but yeah. So Saito takes the early advantage on some judo trips. I thought a good stiff chop exchange between these two. They were really kind of exchanging some leather with each other. Saito gets the advantage, and Sonny uses the Japanese flag to help choke Johnny. Russian leg sweep by Saito gets 2, and they make fun of Tony's call again, saying that it's a Russian leg sweep. Johnny then makes his comeback, hits the double axe handle and the sunset flip from the top rope for 2. Some stiff punches from Johnny B. Bad after that. He suplexes Saito, and Sonny Ono's up on the apron. Johnny grabs him, and then Saito just comes up from behind, dumps him over the top rope. That gets the DQ. Then Kimberly gets in the ring. Saito stalks her, but Johnny makes the save and then cleans house and hits a somersault senton on the outside. So another kind of rough finish. We're 4 for 4, and I don't think we've had a really great finish yet.
No.
But this was also a quick match, but I thought it was pretty stiff for what we got. I enjoyed it. Nothing groundbreaking at all, but enjoyable while it lasted. I went 2 1/4 here.
I thought Bad's cred is really kind of at an all-time high for him to be included here again, and he's really starting to crest. You wonder if they had any machinations to put him into the main event, or if they always just pictured him topping out as like a U.S. title guy. But it seems more and more that they're putting faith in him as a star. So fucking Sonny, he's out here all the time. I noted all the hop sync stuff. You got all that though. Saito really grinds Bad out of the gate, cranks a chin lock. We get a big slugfest. We get some choking on the floor. Bobby, just to set up this lame Buddy Ryan joke, talks about when Sergeant Pillman asked him to be his manager. Of course, he meant Sergeant Craig Pitbull Pittman. Bad mounts his comeback. It's a nice knee lift. He gets a little bit lost for a minute as it seemed like Sonny missed his cue. Tangles, and then Saito throws him over the rope for the lame DQ. Shitty finish. I thought it was kind of a plotting match. I thought it was good for Bad to be here. He gets the win, even though it was kind of cheap, but it felt like a styles clash that didn't really get rolling. WCW ties it up, and I went 2 stars on this. So, I mean, it was fine, but it was just whatever. I'd rather see Johnny like in a high-flying match versus like one where he's got a styles mismatch against a brawler.
Yeah. So they then promote Super Brawl. Already have the date for that, so that's pretty good. 2 months out. Mm-hmm. Luger then gets an interview. He says he wants to be alone in the triangle match. And then Jimmy Hart is also with Luger, and he's a little bit ambiguous about Kevin Sullivan. He basically says he knows something, but is not sharing that. So, just quick development there. Then we're moving right along. I mean, they definitely have a structure of the show where it's match, interview, match, interview, match, interview. So right along with the 5th match, it's tied up 2-2. So this is kind of big match, and it's Shinjiro Otani versus Eddie Guerrero. Big spot for Otani. Otani's music rules. I have the note for.
One thing in that interview, I loved Luger saying he owns the pathetic one-arm champion. That was like such a great Lex line. That he gets it on Savage.
Yeah, that is a big Lex line there. I noted I liked Otani's music, but I don't recall it now, so I'll have to hit the YouTubes afterwards. May create my own little playlist of all these themes. They had a weird spelling of Otani, Ootani.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah, Otani. Who knows why? Thought a nice Eddie chant to start out. Dream did calls Otani a hot toddy and relates that. He said, "I had a couple Otanis last night on the street, baby." It's like, all right.
He also says it's a very pivotal situation in public. Pivotable.
Oh boy.
Dusty's the best. He's so good.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's entertaining. I gotta say, it's definitely entertaining. Very good mat wrestling to start. Otani's using some underhanded tactics, raking the eyes. Eddie gets the advantage with a Rana, and he sends Otani to the outside. Eddie hits the Boston Crab. Dusty really loves also saying where the big boys play. We heard it maybe 5 or 6 times just in this match alone. I mean, he'd almost end every statement as, this is where the big boy play. And he, just said that every time. So you could tell he really loved that. Eddie gets that disgusting power bomb that he did in the Benoit match also.
Yes.
That gets a 2 here. Brainbuster, and Otani has to get his foot on the rope to stay in the match there. And then Otani throughout the match uses a lot of springboard offense, which is kind of his signature. It's a really nice springboard drop kick and a springboard splash to the outside. As the crowd comes alive, Eddie starts favoring his shoulder. And then Bobby says, "Dusty, let's say you're Guerrero. What are you thinking right now?" And Dusty says, "I'm thinking I lost a lot of weight, brother." So just absolutely. I
wish he did. We'd get completely derailed if he did commentary on Nitro too. But I'm hoping. I think he's pretty much on the pay-per-views now for like the next 2 years. I think, which is great because this is a good dose of him that we can get on all the big pay-per-views because it's so much fun and I love him.
springboard spinning back kick looks nasty. It really uncorks on Eddie. But Otani gets caught on top. Eddie hits a Rana from the top. Eddie hits the Splash Mountain power bomb, and that gets 2. The action spills to the outside, and then I thought Eddie did a really cool reverse splash from the ropes. That busts up Otani's nose, and then he hits another nasty springboard drop kick. And then I like the finish. We finally got a good finish where Eddie hits a Rana, but Otani flips it around. They do a series of quick pinfall reversals with Otani getting the quick pin on Eddie to go up 3-2 for Japan. That was a really cool kind of sequence showing they were evenly matched and the athleticism of both. So, I mean, I think this is no surprise that this is probably the most well-known match reputation-wise coming in. I thought it held up really well. Thought it was a really good match and ended up going 3 3/4.
Nice. Yeah, it's a big-time tipping point, too, here with things tied up. Tony really puts over Otani, like, big time. And also talks about Eddie being familiar with Japan from his work over there. We get the Dusty lineup being very pivotal. Tony shouts out Diamond Ridge Racing, which will feature a WCW car next year, so some look forward to as we get it to 96. Bobby thinks they mean horse racing and thinks it's a jalopy demolition derby. A lot of back and forth mat work early. Eddie gets that first impact spot with the head scissors takeover, and we get another Dusty line. He goes, he came in riding a high horse, a rickshaw, if you will. I guess talking about Otani, I don't know, or Sonny Ono. Ono's very antsy outside, by the way. You mentioned the sick power bomb that was nasty. The brainbuster was real nasty too. Both guys get worn down. The trade in pin covers, they're getting desperate. The nice crazy snap German by Otani. When he goes to the heel hook ankle lock, Dusty calls it an uncler. But Eddie gets the ropes, so he does not uncle. Perfect springboard, twist and crossbody by Eddie to the floor, and things really, really picked up. By the end, we get great heat on Otani when he misses after he hits the missile dropkick, and then they trade off the roll-up attempts until Otani steals one. I thought this was a great match. A lot of stiff offense, a beautiful pace, and a perfect pivot match because you could feel the importance from both guys, and I think they're evenly matched, so you don't feel like either guy is fighting uphill. So I thought that was really cool, and it really felt like it could go either way right up until the end. So it's such a good fulcrum match where we're 2-2, and you get these guys that are dead even. They're having this war back and forth, and then Otani just steals the win on these roll-ups. So I thought it was really well done. I went 3.5. I do wish, I'm glad like Eddie's in this match. It would have been kind of cooler if Eddie got to win a match, and maybe like Bad was in this or something, or maybe this is match 4, and then Bad is 5 and lose, whatever. However you want to do it. My point is, I think Eddie, after as good as he's been and the workhorse he's been, of the guys that won, maybe he would have deserved to get one of those 4 wins, but. Either way, he shines so much here that it doesn't really matter that much. Just something I thought because he's been such a star on Nitro. But either way, losing this match is better than winning a shitty one with Saito or something. So I'll take it. But yeah, I really liked it.
I'm interested to see when we think Eddie's kind of push to a degree drops a little bit.
Yeah.
Or if it just sort of sustains. Because, yeah, I mean, even though I think it's been much greater than I thought, as we talked about rewatching it. I mean, they're building him up as a really good prospect. He's kind of like the AA prospect that shows a lot of flash in the futures game and then is right on the cusp of joining the big league team, So it'll be interesting to track as we get into 96 what happens there.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if it continues. Obviously, so much happens in 96. You wonder how he'll be utilized. But so far, I mean, it's funny because I would think it probably sustains because even here in 95, it's not like he's getting a mega push. He's just winning really good matches on the undercard and looks good every time. So he's getting lots of wins, but it's not like he's in big programs. So I would think that at a minimum would continue.
Yeah. That's why I don't know if it'll drop off or keep up. So we'll see. A crackpot Savage promo next.
Yes.
Where he's just completely off the rails. Gene actually says Hogan asked him how unhinged Savage was. And Savage kind of confirms that for the Hulkster by basically rattling off and saying, I'm damaged, but I'm going to do it. Dig it. So, words of wisdom from the Macho Man. And that kind of leads us right into his match as he's facing Hiroshi Tenzan. Tenzon's also another guy I've never really liked too much. He's still plying around every once in a while for New Japan on undercards. Just somebody I thought never really kind of reached that great worker level, but he was really young here, so he gets kind of a pretty big spotlight against the. He pounds away. This is kind of his usual meat and potato offense that you see from him with the kicks, the double chops, and the punches. Savage hits his head on the turnbuckle pad, and he hits Tenzon's head on the turnbuckle pad, and he no-sells that, which I thought was weird. The action spills to the outside. Tenzon pounds away back out there. I thought we got a nice spinning back kick by Tenzon. And they show the Spanish commentary team, and Pedro Morales was on a commentary there. But they're it looked like they're in the Pepsi suite. They were way back in the auditorium here.
Well, hey, the Pepsi suite was actually close.
Oh, so
it was on the. Well, the Pepsi suite was interesting. The suite was like underneath, and then the seats were like a row. We were like in the first row off the floor, kind of. So.
Oh, okay.
We were real close.
The Spanish announcers, they were.
They're in the Winston. They're in the Winston seats. Yeah.
Yeah. From their vantage point, we can see how they were able to call the Spanish commentary. Tenzon then hits his headbutt for 2, but he misses his moonsault. It was impressive. I would think for a first-time viewer to see someone Tenzon size be able to do a moonsault. And then Savage clothesline him from behind. Then we get a really awkward spot where Tenzon sandbags Macho on a suplex. It doesn't come off good at all, where Tenzon lands on the ropes. That looked really awkward, and then Savage immediately goes for the elbow drop, hits that, and gets the pinfall. So WCW was down 3-2. They had a must-win here. They got their big guns coming up in Savage and Sting, and Savage takes care of the business here. I kind of thought this was a little odd match to go on 6.
Yeah.
Just because I don't think this one was ever in doubt to a degree. So I think I may have put this one right behind the Lex match, actually, too. So it had been 2-2, but Savage gets the pinfall. Another kind of decent match, but also one that felt like it belonged on Nitro. So I went 2 1/4 here, too.
They're in a really tough spot, too. Because you want to have a couple of the big dogs later because you're going to do the 3-2 gimmick and you want to give Savage and then Sting. But it's also kind of unfair. If you're Savage or Sting, you're like, wait a minute. None of these matches have to be in this order. And we have a title match right after. So poor Sting has to go back to back. You know what I mean? Was that really fair?
Yeah.
Why not give Eddie the last spot and let him get the big clinching win instead of Sting's got a million of these kinds of wins. I get that he's the big dog and everything else, but why not put their matches up front and you have a built-in excuse? You can say, look, these are early, these are now because these guys have to wrestle later. Now we have to put this all on the back of Eddie Guerrero or Chris Benoit in match 7, to save us. So that could have been an additional kind of bonus storyline.
And I kind of think, the Horsemen to a degree are going to get cheered regardless, right?
Right.
So I think you almost also could have put in Arn and Pillman in this and let them have matches. I don't necessarily know if you had to use Savage here or Luger there. I get Sting and Sasaki because they sort of had a feud there. But it does seem very arbitrary that Flair doesn't wrestle.
Right. Either have all of them or none of them. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to say this thing is such a big deal that these guys are willing to do both. I think that's the story. I don't know if they really illustrate that well, but I feel like that was kind of what they were going for, that these guys are so necessary and they care so much about WCW in this World Cup that they're going to compete twice. I do think just at the very least they really should have just put them earlier. And I think it would have been cool to showcase a guy, not as big as a Sting or Savage to save the day. Because we're going to get them the matches anyway. Do we really need Sting getting the World Cup win? He's won so much other stuff. So it felt like it was probably a little unnecessary if he hadn't had a minute. Yeah. But Tony talks about how many in Japan see Tenzon as the next big star. Dusty says there's no one better to have down 3-2 than Savage. Savage gets a big pop, but the guitar version of his music definitely takes the entrance feel down a bit. It's just not as amazing as his old, the original Pomp and Circus is. Yeah. It's still a cool entrance and cool song, but it's not as not as epic or iconic as the original. Good feeling out. They play to the crowd. We get Tenzan obviously overpowering Savage. Tony gets to some history. He talks about Tenzan's issues with Muda. I thought that was some cool insight to the character, talking about Japan there. Bobby talks about Savage's back is taking a beating, just like it did from Giant on Nitro. Savage tries to suplex Tenzan, struggles, and he ends up hanging him across the top. That was the spot you mentioned earlier where we sandbagged him. And then, as usual, Savage scampers in and hits the elbow to the win and a big pop. I thought that was a fun moment, very basic match with just the usual Savage formula where he takes a shit kicking and sneaks out the win in the end. Tenzan looks strong, but overall, again, they just never really got to the next gear. I went 2.5, and we're all tied up with one match to go.
Yeah, I wonder who was Tony's spotter
for
this show.
That was someone.
I don't think he was getting tapes from Big Dave.
I think it was Rich Craich, maybe?
Jeff Lynch. Oh, boy.
Probably today, right?
Yeah, that's actually true. Yeah, you're probably right. I didn't think about
unless they
Michael Tenay, as Gene says when he shows the hot one.
It could have also been Lee Marshall for any women's action because he's the women's wrestling
if there were
specialist.
any females. Could have got Lee's insight there. So they go back to the announce booth. Bobby is distraught that now it's tied up. Tony's cracking up at that. And then we get our promo from Flair. And this was, this was just one of those, like, Flair promos where, it's not one of his greatest promos of all time, but I was like, for most wrestlers, this probably would be one of the best promos they've ever had. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of just run-of-the-mill for Flair. Like, I thought it was really good. Talks about how smart he was for wrestling, and they'll be for not wrestling in the World Cup, and they'll be getting him fresh, and talks about having ladies on the street in Nashville, and just really
Dolly Parton by my side.
Beats. Yeah. So he hits all the Flair beats. He's so energetic. He's so captivating on screen. Like, you cannot not be engaged by what he's saying. So I enjoyed this greatly.
Michael Tenay in Las Vegas.
Yes, Michael Tenay in Las Vegas on Monday.
I loved Bobby stooging at the table with the folding chair and the headphones and papers.
Yes, he turns it around AC Slater style at this point. So distraught over his meal ticket Iowa may be retained by the U.S.
But then he's like dropping the headphones, he's dropping the fucking paper. Like, it's just so good. It's so good. Everything's getting tangled up.
Yeah. Dusty's like, Bobby, are you okay?
But why are they sitting? They're making these poor guys sit in fucking folding chairs. Like, get them something comfortable. Yes. It's like,
how uncomfortable could that have been for 3 hours? Dusty's fat ass sitting in a folded chair for 3 hours. That had to not be very comfortable at all.
It's like a fucking Knights of Columbus breakfast. It's like, get some comfortable chairs. It's a fucking VFW or some shit.
Oh, man. Or did you see Simmons' Instagram story from TakeOver? Did you catch that? No. Well, Morrow, he was sitting behind Morrow. And my God, like, that man needs to calm down about 10 notches.
Be careful, you're going to get blocked on Twitter. Watch out.
Okay, sorry. I will take the hit there. Completely out of control, like kicking his recliner chair, the nice video game looking chairs they have now. He was practically humping that at points during the Cole match. Mama effing Mia or whatever. So anyway, so we're up to the finals of the World Cup. Kensuke Sasaki versus Sting. Sting brings out Old Glory with him, gets the biggest pop of the night. Sasaki attacks before the bell.
And I thought this was Sasaki has Sonny Bono with him.
Yes, of course. Sonny Bono accompanying the ringside.
Sonny Bono.
Really quick pace, back and forth. They kind of go for a sprint here. Things settle down a bit when Sasaki gets control. He locks on the Scorpion Deathlock. Now, I thought Tony had been really good all night, like showing his knowledge. I thought this was his only sort of misstep where Sasaki gets the Scorpion on, which is his finisher too, and they all act shocked. Like,
right.
They're like, oh, he's putting his own move on him, So I thought that was kind of a missed opportunity.
Michael Tenay must have been at the slots. Must have missed the
he was giving his hotline report there. So Sting powers out of that. Sasaki gets a dragon screw leg whip, which I can't remember what Tony calls that, but it was not that either.
Right.
It was some odd call. And then Sting makes his comeback with the clothesline, his bulldog, and then he gets the scorpion. The crowd comes alive. Dusty yells out, "Hell yes!" as soon as he locks on the scorpion. Sasaki tries to power it out, but then Sting sits down and gets the submission. And WCW wins the World Cup. So this was a pretty good culmination.
Mm-hmm.
A quick sprint, like I said. I think this only went like 7 minutes. But, a good finale to the tournament overall. I went 2.5 here. It was serviceable, and it got the job done.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you pretty much covered everything. We got a lot of sniping with Bobby and Dusty here. Bobby says Sonny Ono's working on a big deal to buy the Dallas Cowboys and move them to Yokohama. This is what he's working on now. We get a big mark out from Tony and Dusty at the end. Yeah, I mean, a fun match, good power offense, some good crowd heat. Team WCW comes out and celebrates with Sting. The crowd, it's a big USA chant, so they really kind of build this up. I think it could have been a little bit longer, but Sting had other stuff to do, so I get why they kept it short. But I thought the whole cup was really well done. I thought it was filled with quality. We get no bullshit, no bullshit at all, just pure wrestling. I thought it was a really good idea and showcase. I think, to your point, maybe the one thing I would have had done is kept Sting and Luger out of it, and Savage, and just put some different guys in. Like you said, use Arn, use Pillman, and I'm sure there's one other guy out there they probably could have found and shoehorned in, and keep the other guys for the main event, so you get more focus. And there's no title, like you're already selling the match, so this was like a really good chance to use other guys and get them into nice spots. But as it is, at least we get Bad, Eddie, Benoit, and Wright in there, so that was kind of cool. But no, I really like the concept. I thought. We talk a lot about the Starrcade concepts. I think this is pretty much the last time they do one. From there on out, it's normal cards, but
yep.
We've seen the round robin stuff. Was at 89. We've seen Battle Bowls, and now this. And I think this is probably the best of the concepts that they tried for Starrcade.
Yeah, you had the Iron Man in 89. It wasn't a concept, but it was a concept with the tag tournament in 90. Mm-hmm. Battle Bowl 91, King of Cable Finals 92, and then this. And I thought this was probably the best concept. I still am not keen on it being on quote unquote your biggest show of the year.
Right.
But overall, I thought it was executed well, and I did like at the end. So we'll get kind of a little bit of celebration. Mm-hmm. Where everyone comes out to celebrate, and everyone's wearing like a WCW World Cup shirt, except for Benoit, who's wearing his Horseman shirt. I thought that was a nice touch. He's also kind of standing off to the side. And then Sting basically receives the trophy, gives his interview, and they celebrate for a bit as we get our video package for the Triangle match.
All right, and before we get to that, Chad, why don't we take a minute here. Why don't we talk really quick about what's been going on in the world of Place to Be Nation on our podcast feeds. Take a breather, and then we'll get to the final two matches out of the cup. Pretty busy week on the PTB and Pop feed on iTunes. Steve and Kelly joined by Jason Sherman on the new Songs of Friends, and of course, they're talking Bush, amongst other songs, or other artists. Greg and Nick hear the new Longbook Hunters edition of the Hard Traveling Fanboys, looking at Shazam, the Monster Society of Evil. They also had their 3rd anniversary special drop featuring the essential Jim Ross. Mr. Reich and Mr. Murray breaking down the non-NBA playoff teams and where they head as the playoffs kick off in the newest NBA team podcast. We had another installment of the Marvel Age podcast as the crew moved into the first half of 1970. Jenny and Tim had a new Talkin' Pop, welcoming Glenn Butler to the high seat in this month's edition. Geek and Sassy award season, they delivered their 2nd annual Sassies, so check out what the fans of Jenny and Miranda had to say as they put their bow on 2018. Just want to also mention a new contest going on with the podcast Looking Forward, Looking Back, doing a summer movie wager based on how well you think you could predict how this summer's movie releases will do in the domestic box office. You're going to pick the top 10 movies in order of how you think they'll finish, and include 3 wildcard picks to be the biggest bomb of the summer. You can email those to lflbpop@gmail.com by Monday the 22nd. Any movie released after April 26th, ending on Labor Day, is eligible. So The winner of that gets to be on a future episode of Laughing in Theater. So there you go. Cool little contest by Andy Atherton, and looking back. And let's look over to the PTBN wrestling feed as well. Nate Milton, hot off the presses, and his boys here to break down WrestleMania 35, a very special edition of Chain Reaction. Chris and Devin had their Place to Be Nation WrestleMania 35 reaction show as well. I thought that was a great listen. I thought they did a nice job breaking down the card into the wee hours of Monday morning after the show ended. So kudos to them, and kudos to Todd Weber for getting that up quickly as well.
Oh yeah, up by 6 a.m.
Yeah,
really impressive.
Yeah, that was really great work by all three of those guys, and it sounded great too. It wasn't like rushed or half-assed. All three of those guys delivered in spades, and you can buffer that with Chain Reaction. Main event as well will be out by the time you hear this with Scott's, and he has a cavalcade of stars. I won't name drop in case anything changes between now and when they record it, but it should be a good show breaking down the weekend.
Yeah, he's got Donnie Cena and Roman Reigns.
Right, Donnie Allen, I believe, from ECW will be joining him.
Judge Jeff Jones.
Yes. We also continue our dip chat into where the big boys play Vault. You and Par starting your look at Starrcade 87. And also a brand new What If, Nick and Greg looking at a world where CM Punk doesn't leave in 2014. So that's the newest Pod Blast from the boys. And be sure to check out...
That's a Pod Blast or Jay Hinchy's Nightmares?
No, he'd love it. Of course. So check out PlayStation.com each and every day. We have the newest Wednesday Walker on the Web drop this week as well. And the written content will be coming now that Mania is done. We're going to really focus on getting that back up and running. So that's everything going on our feeds, which you can subscribe to on iTunes.
What about this candy tournament? I'm getting very annoyed with it.
Oh, what a shock.
Crunch.
There's a lot of stumping for Crunch on Twitter right now. Russell Sellers is
Crunch.
9-year-olds. I mean, who would vote for Crunch over Snickers?
Yeah, well, Crunch over, it'd be what, Milky Way, which I was shocked by.
Yeah.
That
was a big upset.
Yeah.
I guess the big thing that I was told by Scott about 9 times this weekend is that Dr. G is championing Kit Kat to knock off Snickers. So
okay.
If you're a Dr. G fan, that's where he's headed.
So call Mike Tenay in Las Vegas to
get the hot insider news about how he's going to promote Kit Kat. So the regional semis are up in each of the regions right now. So the candy bar region would drop today. Snickers number 1 seed versus Nestle Crunch, the 5, and then Kit Kat versus Hershey Bar. That's the 2-3 matchup. They're out on Twitter, or you can join the Facebook group, PTBN Greatest Candy Tournament.
A lot of suckers advanced too, like Tootsie Pops, Blow Pops. I thought that was kind of interesting. And Tic Tacs, that was the other one. I was like, who? I don't know.
A lot of phallic enjoyment.
Like, I like Tic Tacs, but I don't really consider that candy, sort of. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But,
yeah, I can see the argument.
It just seems weird, but yeah. So,
but I mean, if you're gonna have like Lifesaver mints, I think you have Tic Tacs or Mentos.
Well,
mints.
Yeah, I mean, as we'll get to, there I had some
issues with that as well. Okay.
Selections, but yeah.
I look forward to you and Scott Butler ripping apart the tournament.
On the next descent, we will critique the tournament and book our own.
Can't wait.
Are we ready to move into our triangle match?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so we have Sting versus Ric Flair versus Lex Luger, big triangle match. Kind of a interesting concept here. A pretty new concept. I mean, first time. Well, no, so they did do this in Fall Brawl 94.
Yep.
But kind of the second time they brought it back. And WWF had not done a triangle match at this point, correct?
No, their first one was not until Raw in 97.
Okay.
I believe it's a weird match they throw out. It's like Patriot, Owen, and Triple H or something like that. It's some weird 3-way that they bust out. So that's like the summer 97. And I think one of the first, because it's funny, if you hear it talk, like, don't they really credit ECW with kind of being like the original triple threats?
Yeah.
Which I think they do. I think they originate like all the 3 guys in at once style.
Yeah, so they had the 3-way dance like the night the line was crossed in 94. three-way dance. They had that there. Also, there was the triple threat for Bash at the Beach '95 for the tag team.
Yes, but that was a triangle. That was a triangle match as well, where they weren't all in at the same time. They actually were tagging in and out, and only two guys at a time.
So this is it's a unique concept where it's, I mean, basically here we get 3 mini matches. I mean, there's no, at the very tail end we have all 3 interacting with each other, but before that, and this is a 28-minute match, so for, I'd say 26 minutes of it, it's just one match and then the next match and then the next match is 3 8-minute matches almost. Tony says him and Dusty have listened to Charlie Daniels, and then Dusty tells Bobby that he was thinking of his good friend Jack Daniels. So I thought that was a little dark and morbid by Dusty getting off a drinking joke to Bobby. Sting and Flair start off. Luger has to go to the apron. They said there was going to be a coin toss, and then there wasn't. So I don't know what happened there, but Sting and Flair start off. They basically have their match. I mean, we talked about it when they had their match on Nitro. You know what that's going to sort of look like. Sting hits his power moves. He sells some.
There was a match on Nitro. Oh, that's right. I heard about it on Talking WCW. I don't think anyone's ever talked about it before that. That was the first time. Brand new.
Yeah. I'm surprised it's not on the hidden gems of WWE Network. They unearthed it. So Sting gets.
It was on a tape in Tim's closet, just like the Tom McGee match.
He's the Mary Kate of PTB.
of famous Nitro matches that are available everywhere.
So Flair chops Sting, and then he kind of struts and makes fun of Flair. Power slam, power moves by Sting. Flair gets Luger distracted, so the referee's dealing with Luger, and then he dumps Sting over the top rope. Then he works over Sting for a bit, being the ring general he is. Sting then makes his comeback and has some pin attempts, but looks like he's going to come in and break that up. So there's a little bit of a, back and forth there. Whereas, was Luger going to come in or not? And then Sting and Luger talk, and Flair sends Sting into the corner, and Luger actually makes the tag to tag in. So now it's Luger and Flair. They have their matchup. I've always liked their chemistry together. I thought this continued here. Luger has the early advantage with some power moves. Flair's begging off. He's trying to pepper the midsection. And then he finally is able to get a big opening going after the leg of Lex. Chair to the leg real quickly as the referee was distracted. And then Flair's able to lock on the figure 4. But Luger's able to reverse that. And then a kind of a brilliant moment, and sort of the moment we've been working up towards really since Luger debuted, Flair tags in Sting. So now it's Luger versus Sting. And this is where I thought the Nashville crowd really let themselves down, because I thought they'd sort of built up this showdown well. Even over the course of this match, they'd built to it. And this was meant to be kind of the breaking point of all this and their first interaction against each other. And the crowd was pretty tepid.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, what do you chalk that up to? I didn't know if that was just sort of the star power of Flair or kind of why that was.
Yeah, I think maybe that made us burned out a little bit. Maybe a little bit torn between Luger and Sting, I guess. Yeah, or maybe they just suck. I don't know. Maybe they're just boring fans. I do think Tony gets a cool note in here when he says this is the first time these two have locked up since Super Bowl II. So, again, he's bringing some history and meaning to this. He's been awesome tonight, like you mentioned.
Yeah, he dropped a lot of knowledge. Like, he even had the world title counts for all men that he recalled quickly. And was right on it. And yeah, I thought that was good. Like Bobby just sort of offhandedly, he's like, when was the last time these two matched up? And Tony's like, 1992, Super Bowl II. It's like, man, like Bobby's like, what don't you know? Which I thought was good.
Yeah.
So I mean, I thought they had a pretty good back and forth here, where they sort of size each other up, see who's the most powerful man, and then Luger gradually starts peppering in some more heel work. And that culminates with him actually getting a low blow. Luger's able to get Sting up in the rack, but in the process of that, Sting's leg inadvertently kicks the referee, so the referee's down. Flair then dumps Sting over the top rope and then chop blocks Luger in his injured leg. Luger's on the outside, and then Flair revises the referee, tells him to start the count, which he does. It looks like Sting's going to get back into the ring, but Lex holds him down, and Flair's able to win by count out. So a kind of sneaky ending. I thought a pretty cool ending to the match that didn't really feel like a cop-out, even though it sort of was. And I really like this match. I think this is a match that could have some differing opinions because it is sort of slow-paced. It is a little disjointed in that it's 3 matches in one, but it's one I've always appreciated, and I thought the crowd sort of owed it a better reaction than it ended up getting. So I ended up going 3 3/4 for this bad boy too. I really enjoyed this one.
All right, well, we're gonna get differing opinions right here. This is a real big power match, star power match, really, that they stacked on top of the World Cup, and it really puts over the importance of the WCW title. You kind of get that unfair advantage for Flair, like we mentioned, and the rules are a bit convoluted. Luger has really earned the spot. He's been a workhorse. He's been a big time pickup for WCW in the Nitro era, and I also thought it was a cool. Fitting moment for Starrcade, which is WCW's quintessential show, and you kind of have the three biggest stars of at least 88 to here, right? I mean, they're I would argue three of their biggest since Starrcade began. And Dusty kind of points that out as well. He says that these 3, along with himself, were like the foundation of WCW. So I think it really shows the importance. Dusty illustrates it, and I think overall it really shows the importance of putting these guys out there. On Starrcade in this huge match on top of the World Cup. It was just a really cool idea and moment, and I think it speaks like the way they viewed these 3 guys as legends of WCW. So I thought that was a really cool point by Dusty, and just something I noticed as well. So Sting is hot from his last match. He's all warmed up. He swarms Flair. I like that they pretty much, he was already coming into this thing warm, which I guess is one of the few benefits, that he was just in the ring, and they play that up. They freeze out Luger, like you said. We get a lot of this usual Sting stuff. Luger keeps breaking up the pin because he wants to give himself a chance. You get Flair decking Sting from behind, and then he staggers to Lex, who finally tags himself in. He trades his offense with Flair, which is a match we haven't, we talk about Sting and Luger we haven't seen. Luger and Flair haven't touched in 95 as well, right? So when's the last time they fought? 90?
Yeah, I mean, so they were obviously building towards that.
Right.
In 91 with Great American Bash, but
we don't get
Flair
it.
bolted.
Yeah.
So, I think it's like September 1990.
All right. So, 5 years since Luger. And that's like another, quintessential WCW match and feud. Like when you think of 88, 89, 90, like the matches they had. One of Flair's best rivals. So that's kind of cool, too, that we're getting Luger, Sting, and Luger. For Luger has been back since September. We're just now getting like these 2 iconic WCW matches between the guys. So I thought that was a nice touch to this as well. You get Flair stares at both men, then tags in Sting because he wants to make the friend square off. But again, it's costly because it takes him out of the action. So I get that he's trying to fuck with Sting and Luger, but he's really running a risk that the match ends with him on the apron, which I guess plays into the strategy of the rules here, which do come across as convoluted, but I guess there is some strategy baked in to that. Like, yeah, you want a breather, but you also don't want to be out of the ring too long. So, and why would anyone ever tag? So that part's interesting. The crowd wakes up a little bit, but not too much. Luger kind of really meanders through some of his power offense with Sting, and I thought it started to drag a bit here. Bobby keeps pointing out that Luger's not going to the rack. He just keeps clubbing away. I think he was trying to hint that maybe he didn't want to go to the rack on Sting. I did like Flair keep trying to sneak in a tag wherever he could, but he couldn't do it. And then you get Sting missing the splash. Luger racks some ref bump, and then we get tumble outside. And I loved the finish here with Luger grabbing Sting's hand because he does it so well, where it looks like he's really just trying to hold his hand to have him help him up. It's his buddy, but deep down it looks like, and you wonder, is he just trying to keep Sting from winning because he's just an asshole? So it's really, really well done. It's a real intricate moment in this really deep relationship that's played out. I love that. On the surface, the finish is a touch lame, but I think it fits Flair's style that he would win. Like, it almost harkens back to Survivor Series 91 where he wins the Survivor match by countout as the sole survivor. So it's a very Flair win, you know what I mean? So that was fine. But I think the booking and the storyline of Luger and Sting is more important than having any other kind of finish here. So I thought that was really nice. A lot of good hype, and I thought this started well, but I do think it dragged on, and I think the crowd is super flat, which hurt it, like you mentioned. And the finish was just a touch soft from an in-ring point of view. And I did think that this following the World Cup hurt it as well, because it felt a little bit like slow motion at times compared to that. Not necessarily that that's always a bad thing, but it just, like, some of the matches we saw in the Cup and then coming here just felt a little bit sluggish. So I went 3 on this, which is much lower than you. But I just think it had its moments, and I feel like I liked the concept and the idea of it more than the actual execution of it. Like, I loved that we had the 3 top guys, the strategy behind it, the Luger Sting stuff was neat, but like around that, like the action itself to me didn't ever really get going.
Yeah, I mean, I see that. I mean, I can see the critiques for the match. It's flawed. But some of the beats, like the finish, even though, again, I could see how somebody would say it's cheap, but it worked for me, and I thought it felt true to the character.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoyed it well enough. And then they sort of lead right into Savage versus Flair. They talk for a brief moment, the commentators, and they go straight in. Jimmy Hart comes out to corner Flair. Buffer does the intros. Savage punches away to start, but they're working a quick pace, almost like how Sting and Sasuke were earlier. And then in a moment I did not remember at all, Paul Orndorff comes out to ringside with his neck brace and a death stare. He looked very angry. I had no memory of this, as I said.
Right.
But it was interesting that they kept that kind of feud alive from Nitro, and I wonder if that's ever going to get dropped or if we get a payoff from that. I know you're a little bit ahead. Have you?
Nothing yet that I remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Keep that one in mind. Savage goes for the double axe handle to the floor, catches a punch from Flair in the midsection. Bobby calls one of the women in the crowd a cheathead. She had like a very kind of afro-looking haircut, so I enjoyed that. Flair's working over Savage on the floor. Dusty calls Jimmy Hart a social climber, which I enjoyed that as well. I thought that was pretty astute of Dusty. And then Flair starts working over, of course, the injured arm of Savage. The crowd was more subdued here than I thought they should be. I think they are just sort of burned out. I don't know.
Think so.
I mean, 9 matches isn't that many, but maybe just like the variety of guys, they were just done. So it's kind of weird. Savage makes his comeback. The megaphone comes flying in. Savage wallops Flair with that. Flair does pretty much the mother of all blade jobs. I mean, I don't know if I've seen someone get that bloody that quickly.
Yeah, as
Flair does here, where he rakes across his forehead. He starts gushing. The Horsemen come in to try to interfere. Savage stops them. Savage chokes out Pillman, but then Anderson comes in, looks like he has the brass knuckles. He hits Savage with that, puts Flair on top, and we get a new world champion to a huge pop from the crowd. The crowd really wakes up for that. And then we get the Horseman celebration with Pillman going absolutely apeshit, jumping around, spinning into the camera, and Flair's just a bloody mess. So a quick match, had a good pace. I don't know. I'm more unsure of this finish than the triangle match, as I didn't think it made Flair look very comparable.
Yeah, but I think they were trying. It
gives the Horseman credibility.
That's it. I think they were just trying to go classic Horseman, where the whole crew has to come in and help. I think they were just trying to get over the Horseman concept to this newer audience that may not have been as familiar, because we really haven't had a classic heel Horseman since '91, right?
Yeah, I mean,
right.
Kind of late '90s.
Right. So we haven't
we
haven't really seen this. So I part of me thinks like they're really trying to establish this Horseman again as heels. They really just formed as a heel group, a month and a half earlier. So I think that's just a big part of it. And we'll see. Like, the title situation is a big hot potato situation over the next couple of months. So I'm not too worried about Flair not looking equal to Savage. He just wrestled a half-hour match. So, and then he's in here against Savage. So, like, I think it's fine to go this route because he'll be presented as such going forward, and the title will be evenly matched over the next couple months with a bunch of guys. So,
yeah, I mean, the thing with the Nux was a little, I kind of wish they'd have done something where, like, Arn would have hit a chair on Savage's arm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I think they could have done something like that, and I think that'd have been better. But, yeah, I mean, Flair's your world champion going in, and it kind of feels like, we're going back to the standard. I enjoyed the match. I ended up giving it 3 stars.
Rematch from Nitro earlier in the week, 2 days earlier. Long buffer hype intro for this one. And I think that was probably to allow Flair to rest a bit, I'm guessing. Savage really was aggressive early on. We get the Orndorff thing. Tony talks a bunch about Pillman and how he's a loose cannon for the Horsemen. Donuts Dellinger comes out to back off Paul Orndorff. Flair really works the arm for bits. Savage is really on fumes, but he keeps us coming on autopilot at Flair. Flair grabs a megaphone and whiffs. Savage pastes him with it, and like you said, let's get the sick blade job. Pillman and Benoit are out. Jimmy's tying up the ref, and then we get all the Horseman stuff. I thought the goofiest part of that was the ref missing everything because he wasn't really knocked out. He's just kind of right there, and like they're just really in there beating the shit out of Savage. I do think it worked at another level too. The whole story of Savage's title reign over the last month is that he's really beaten up and battered, and like his body just finally gives out because he just can't overcome the numbers. So I thought it made him look tough too. That he's fighting off all these guys. He's been battered. He's been beaten. He's taken a shit kicking of the Giant and the Horseman and everything else. And Luger, he finally just succumbs to all of it. I do think it was a bit behind the Nitro match. So I went 3 stars here as well. I had 3 and a 4 for Nitro. 3 and a 4. It's been a long 3 and a quarter for Nitro. So a touch behind that one. But I thought everything just felt gassed after a long night. I don't know how I didn't look at the exact time on the show, but between the crowd and even I felt a little gassed. Like everything just feels like a little run down.
It's only a 2-hour, 45-minute show.
Yeah.
But I guess it feels longer than that. I think because like every match had stakes to it.
Yep.
You know, like with the World Cup, it's like that's a thread with all the matches. So even though like obviously Johnny B. Bad and Saito didn't have a feud coming in,
right.
You know, that was a match that still had stakes to it. Where with other pay-per-views and other stuff, you kind of have your ebbs and flows and sort of pick your spots. I guess it felt kind of relentless more in the pace here.
And there's no break. Yeah, it's just like match. You know what I mean? Like there's no downtime. You're just like, and they're all kind of longish, hard-fought matches. So yeah, I think it's just a lot. It's a lot of wrestling. And I think the double duty probably hurt too. Like, yeah. I guess that was part of the story is that these guys are so worn down by the end of this, and it's meant to be a grueling night if you want to be champion. So like, I get it, but I do think part of it really. It felt like maybe the double duty just overkilled. And we talked about that a bunch earlier, so I don't have to hammer it home here. So I would have either not had the triangle and just done like a title match with and keep Sting and Luger in the tournament, or taken all those guys out of the cup and kept the setup here to earn your way. But I thought it was a great final moment. The Horsemen standing tall and celebrating was really cool. I thought they've really done well to establish them as a top heels now. And you get Tony, Savage, and Dusty close us out for the night. So
right. I mean, as we talked about, this had no Giant, no Hogan because they're suspended.
Yeah.
I mean, you almost could have done 2 triangle matches. You could have done the Flair Sting Luger one as like the opener, and then could have done something like Hogan, Savage, and Giant.
Right.
As the main event. I don't know. There was probably options, I think, but I still like the show overall.
No, me too. Let's get one quick piece of feedback and we'll do our awards. So our buddy Jay Hinchy says one of the few pay-per-views from that year he's actually seen. Solid show with the best of 7 series and the WCW title situation. Do we think that the New Japan WCW Cup should have been for a title match for the winner? I feel like there should have been something on the line besides just the cup. No sign of Hogan on the pay-per-view either. I know in storyline he was suspended. Was there a reason he was taken off TV behind the scenes? I think we've talked about that a decent amount. I think it was just contractual stuff. Flair also regains the title from Savage. Interesting match with Sting and Luger. Looking forward to 96. Keep up the good work.
I mean, they could have done something where, like, if New Japan wins, they get control of worldwide.
Right. That was kind of hinted at, right?
Yeah, I mean, they kept kind of saying that where they were taking over, you know, like Bobby had control of an hour of it, so... I mean, they could have done that. I mean, I forgot to mention also at some point during the triangle match, I think Tony says like a Japanese girl was wanting the title to a Lexus from Bobby or something like that. It's like, I don't know, a lot of handouts.
I was all kinds of back office dealings going on.
Him and Sonny Bono here.
Sonny Bono. What if he would have not?
I haven't read the full Mueller report on Bobby's interaction with Sonny Bono, but
I mean, they could have done something where I guess Flair's in the cup. And whatever team wins, they choose like who. I don't know. I get more convoluted. I guess it's tough. I guess because there's no real winner of the cup, so you can't say like Sting gets a title match because why would he deserve it any more than anyone else because he happened in the last match, you know? So you'd almost have to say the winning team then gets a title. Someone on the winning team gets a title match, like a random draw or something like that. But anyway, all right. Why don't we get to our awards?
You could have done that for the January 4th show coming up, but
right.
It's something. Yeah. All right, our match of the night. I am going with Otani versus Eddie.
Yep, same.
Okay. Segment, whatever. I went with the kind of finale celebration of the bloody Flair and Pillman jumping around.
Yep, I want Flair winning the title.
Okay. Yeah, we didn't really have much angles or nothing else going on in this show besides that. And then... what we got? Commentary. Did you get anything for that?
MVP. Did we do that?
Oh, MVP. Sure. So I went Flair. I thought, I liked him in the promo. I liked him in the triangle match. He gets the big finish. So went with Flair.
I went Sting. He won the cup. He was great there. I liked his, even though we've heard the promo a bunch, I liked the promo, and I thought he was really good in the triangle match. I felt he was kind of the glue of the triangle match, and then he played his part well at the end. So it was kind of Sting's night to me. I did get some commentary. Some I called out earlier, but Sonny Bono from Dusty. Ain't got nothing to do with the Mafia. Oh, here comes the Sicilian elbow. Dusty.
Yeah.
She looks like a bimbo cheerleader. Bobby about Kimberly. She's more volatile. Dusty. Mr. Guerrero, good luck. You'll be paying your bills at Taco Bell. Bobby Heenan.
Oh, boy.
He came riding a high horse, a rickshaw, if you will, Dusty. And now you're on Nitro playing third string to Pepe, Tony said to Bobby. That was pretty funny. So that was the commentary got. One shot's fired. Tony saying nobody wrestles in the Smoky Mountains, which was a good one.
Oh, Jesus. I didn't hear that. That was good.
That was a good one.
No shots fired to WWF, though.
No. They're zeroing in on Cornette, I guess. Kind of a proxy, I guess. But
and then our debuts. I mean, the three guys that I don't think had ever wrestled before for WCW are Kanemoto, Otani, and Tenzan.
Yep.
And as I thought about, the buy rate here was pretty interesting. It was a .36, which was less than World War III, if you can believe that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
World War III was a .43.
It had to be the holiday. I mean, we're a few days after Christmas, 2 days after Christmas. It's just a tough week. Midweek show. You're either on vacation, got stuff going on, or you're having to go to work the next day. So I don't know. I can see why it struggled a bit. No big marquee name. No announced title match either. I shouldn't say no marquee name. It has marquee names, but no Hogan, like you said earlier. And it's just kind of a show with not a lot of feud build up besides the pieces of the triangle match. So I could see maybe why it struggled. If got people that didn't know. Like, we haven't seen a lot of the New Japan guys on Nitro, so if you're not watching, like, worldwide and the weekend shows, you may not be as familiar. So I think it's just a lot of those things probably, were confluent into getting you to this point.
Yeah, Havoc was a .6, so pretty big drop from that. I mean, In Your House 5 was a .3, so just slightly above that. And my overall score... So I actually thought this was probably the second best pay-per-view we've watched behind Survivor Series. I went 7 out of 10 for Survivor Series. I thought this was a little lower than that, so I ended up going at 6.5 out of 10. I mean, as I talked about, you're a little fatigued watching this show, but I enjoyed it all the way through.
I actually had it tied with Survivor Series at 7.5 out of 10.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I think it's tied for the best show we've seen so far. We had a Nitro at a 7, or I did anyway. We had a Raw at a 7, and that's it. So other than that, these have been the two best shows we've watched this in Survivor Series. No, I really liked it a lot. I thought it was a really, really good pay-per-view to close the year. A nice way to go out. And they've set themselves up well for 96. We have a lot of mystery in the world title picture. We have a lot of contenders with Sting, Luger, Flair, Savage. You get the Hogan and Giant stuff. You get the Horsemen back together. And then you got a lot of stacked next level guys that are ready to break through, and Bad and Page and Eddie Guerrero and guys like that. So I think they're in really good shape as we head into 96.
All right, we can do our combo pay-per-view. So best show, I guess we're going with Starrcade.
Yeah, yep.
Best match is pretty easy. It's Brett versus Davey.
Yes.
In best segment, what did we end up saying for In Your House? Was it the
Cornette, Bulldog, and Diana promo? So I'll go with the Flair winning the title.
Flair celebration for that.
Yeah.
Better commentary, I'm going to go with WCW on that one.
Yeah, so yeah, easy.
Our star of the night, probably Brett, correct?
Yes, yep.
And then I'd say, as we talked about, the buy rate went the way of Starrcade. So pretty even, actually. I mean, In Your House 5 is definitely carried by the main event, as we talked about. But,
pretty crazy that Starrcade netted out In Your House 5. That's pretty crazy.
Starrcade barely kind of makes it out just based on the show overall. But with our categories, that Brett versus Davey match is going to give them some points, too.
Okay. All right, that was a fun chat, a fun show, and Chad, we've done it. We are through 1995. So it's been great. Great episode, great show. I hope everyone enjoyed Wrestling Warzone. We're out. We're done. No, so we will start 96. Probably not next week, but the week after, right? We're looking at.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Probably in a couple weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to 96. It's one of my favorite years, and looking at both promotions is gonna be a lot of fun. We don't have a WCW pay-per-view in January. We have a Clash, which will proxy as a pay-per-view for us. We'll kind of match that up with the Rumble, so that'll be interesting. But on tap for our next episode is the 1-1 Raw Nitro. It is Raw Bowl time, Chad, so we'll be talking some football as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's two big shows. Both of those, and that's really where they, as we talked about, like WWF fires back. They have a concept. WCW has a pretty big show in front of the Omni, so we'll see who comes out on top there.
All right, looking forward to it quite a bit. You can hear me next with Scott Criscolo, and Todd Weber will be joining us for our next MSG as we careen to our WrestleMania 5. We're pretty much there. We got one more MSG show, and then we have our build episode. That'll be fun with a round table for that, and then WrestleMania 5 coming at you soon. So that's the next few episodes of Place to Be podcast, and like I mentioned, Chad will be back here soon getting into 96. Anything you want to talk about? You good?
Think I'm good.
All right, smell the napalm. Everyone will be back in a couple weeks. Thanks for listening, as always.